Hey everyone. A couple of days ago, I tried to make a video on Warframe about the different ways that Warframe inspired my art. And to make a long story short, that wasn't something that I was really able to do when it came to editing. Where like I could potentially do it, but it would be a lot more steps than I'd want to, and I'd probably have to like actually buy something to actually complete it. Just because my iPad and PS4 don't want to be compatible with each other. But then I decided that it would actually be better for me to just make the video on my iPad since I can actually show the stuff that I'm talking about in better detail. And so that's what I'm doing. Uh, as you can see here, these are like the 5 main pieces of Warframe art I've made. There are others which are basically all just like fan weapons and stuff. And I would probably have to spend a while finding those. So I'm just showing these five for now. These are definitely the better ones anyway. And now that I've done that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to OneNote here and show a character that probably some of you are probably familiar with. And just as a disclaimer, I haven't like finished filling out these info stuff because I'm doing like a whole rewrite here, which I'll explain in more detail in a different video. But you might recognize this guy, which is Scarin, and he's actually based on my main regular Oberon, the one that you probably see when I'm just using regular Oberon in Conclave. And actually the inspiration for that has like a lot of just indirect influences that go like pretty much as far back as I think like 7 or 8 years ago when I was playing Pokemon really competitively, because I was doing like league stuff, and in one of the leagues I ended up becoming a poison type Elite Four. My main Pokemon was Gengar, specifically Mega Gengar at one point. And then when I started playing Murder Miners, a game that I'll be talking about and making videos of once it's ported to Xbox One, which is supposed to be pretty soon, but it keeps getting delayed. Anyway, once I started playing that, I actually used Mega Gengar colors as my armor there. And then later on, since I like poison, I actually added splashes of green because purple and green are generally like a poison representative combo. So it's so it's like a dark purple fading to lavender with splashes of green. And then when I got to Warframe, I used that same color scheme on my Oberon, and I basically stuck with that color scheme for like the 4 or so years that I played. And then, as you can see here, this has some similarities to my Oberon. Like the most obvious thing is the horns, and you can also see the claws. Somewhat based on Becca Prime, although I doubt that would be an obvious inspiration. And then besides that, there's a character I don't have here because of the rewrite thing I'm doing. So I'm not really updating this section anymore, and I haven't quite added him here yet. But it's a character that's actually one of my main villains, and his appearance is mainly based on both my Oberon Prime and my Murder Minus armor. And so, like for example, he has a thrust attack that's very much based on the Celestia sign Donna. There's another thing that I'll actually talk about, which is these two characters, Darlene and the Merchant. And so, the Merchant is actually the character that's most closely based on me. And Darlene here, what she does, she actually has magic that allows her to control animals, although they do have the power to resist. If someone chooses not to resist, she has full control over them. And so what actually often happens is Darlene controls the Merchant for really specific reasons. I'm not going to explain too much about that, but Darlene controls the merchant for most of the time. And you can tell that's actually obviously based on warframes and operators. And the little pattern that I have here with both this and then also my warframe and operator is that it's like female controlling male basically. So Darlene controlling merchant, my female operator controlling mainly Oberon, and that actually comes from the fact that for I would say maybe 7 or 8 years or so, yeah, 7 or 8 years. Uh, for some reason, people would always mistake me for a woman. Not always, but a very unusual amount considering that they would normally base it on my behavior, because that would be the only thing they had to go off, and what they would often say is their reasoning. And so, to make a long explanation short, I eventually realized that by the only sort of objective measure that I could actually think of or find, that it was basically true. And so while I don't identify myself differently from that, it is something that it's just that fact is something that I do acknowledge. And so, I made my operator that way, and eventually I made these characters that way. Now, if I go here, there's actually some more mixed inspiration. This is actually based on Ogres. You can pause and read the whole description on that, but you'll probably see that it's pretty obviously based on Ogres. So it's it's a fairy weapon that fairies, they're really acrobatic. That they're small, they can jump really high, especially when they're using magic. So they're a lot like warframes in that way. They don't actually fly, so that sort of adds to that as well. Now this is a weapon that the merchant uses, and you might recognize the name by Ruler as one of my Zaws, which is a plague Crippeth polearm. And then so this is very much based on that polearm, but eventually this thing grows because it is also made from living things, and then it grows into a trident shape, which is actually based on the fact that my main weapon in Minecraft is a trident. Particularly, I really like Riptide, but I also do like channeling. And since this isn't actually Minecraft, I've basically combined them into one thing. And so it's a Riptide channeling, and that one enchantment where it comes back to you, it's basically all that in one. Because I would normally I would use Riptide primarily, but I would also actually have both types of tridents. So I could Riptide into the air and then throw down a channeling trident down. And that's that. If I go back to characters here, I think I do have another character that is based on Warframe. Not this one actually, the next is sort of just coincidental. Enry is only slightly based on Warframe, where I'm still working on his appearance, but long explanation short, I saw some similarities to Wukong's powers, and decided to base some aspects of his appearance on Wukong. Don't think I have many other characters here. Oh yeah, there's actually one that I base on Zephyr. If I go here, there's the Plaguesmith, and the Plaguesmith is a very long entry, which is her whole origin. Not gonna go through that because it still needs a bit of work. But the Plaguesmith actually has a son who's based on Zephyr, so like he uses wind much in the same way as Zephyr. So like, he doesn't like fly or anything, but he can generate tons of wind that can carry him around and do stuff like that. Actually, Zaya here. Let me go back over to this. Um, where is she? There she is. Zaya is actually sort of based on my chroma, because as some people know, I actually used to main chroma. So like first I actually mained Zephyr, then chroma, then limbo, then Oberon, and my favorite form of chroma is electric chroma, and so Zaya here is sort of based on electric chroma. She even often scavenges weapons that are like telephone poles or whatever, which is based a lot on Sero, a weapon that I've always felt was really underrated. And then if I go back here, oops. If I go back here, actually Baka, I'm still working on her. And she's actually based mainly on my Valkyr. The thing that I felt was really cool about Valkyr was that I'm not sure if it still works with her, but like what she could do was she could actually hook onto rockets. Like back a little bit after Second Dream released, I used to actually often shoot Ogre's rockets and then ripline onto them. So like she could actually swing on the rockets. Still not sure if that still works, but that's something I definitely use a lot, and that's sort of what a lot of her equipment is based around. It's like she has a sort of anchor cannon. Which, so she can use it like a grappling hook, or just use it as like a launcher that damages people. But like she also has these really like high tech sort of cannonballs that she can use in place of the anchor, which which can actually like suspend themselves in midair, and then she can actually hook onto those using the anchor. And that's really a reference to that. I think that's about all I have to say. I know I didn't have a whole lot of pictures here to show, but I do want to show and talk about a lot more Terriverse stuff on the channel. And I decided that this was something I can make that was Warframe related, which is just a good way to link the two. And so if there's anything here that you want me to explain more about, I could probably prioritize updating it, or just have a video explaining like the old version of it. I will do that, pretty much on request, mainly on request. Like if requested, it's very likely I'm gonna do it. There'll be some exceptions to that, but for the most part, I almost definitely would. So please let me know if you're interested. And the more interested people are, the more I'll definitely work on it and show stuff about it. So as I said, please let me know, and I hope you've enjoyed.